Welcome to We Hear Her. I am Erin Trent Murray.
And I am Jennifer Bean.
We're here today with another amazing woman who's sharing her story and insights to lessons learned. Hi there, I'm Erin Trent Murray, and we are with We Hear Her, podcast by Women Who Succeed. Today, I'm excited to talk to my friend Trent Kauffman, who I've known for about 10 years, I would say, and I'm excited to have him here visiting and talking about engagement with leadership, male or female, male allies in the workforce, and love to tell you a little bit about his background first before we jump in. So Trent is one of the smartest people I think I've ever met, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about him. I'm going to read quite a bit of it because there's so much. But Dr. Trent Kauffman is the co-founder, partner, and CEO of Cicero Group. Trent's areas of expertise include K-12 education, qualitative and quantitative research methodology, performance management strategy, and sales and marketing analytics. Among his team and clients, Trent is known for developing sophisticated systems that enable the use of performance data to maximize individual and team performance at organizations of varied purpose and form. I've seen him work across the board with all sizes of groups of organizations, and that very deliberate scientific approach with wrapping in the nuances and the human elements of education and all that comes to bear is quite impressive. Prior to his time at Cicero, Trent was a senior consultant at Education Resource Strategies and the Buck Institute, and a process transformational lead at AT&T. He also worked as a research and teaching fellow at Harvard University and the Carnegie Corporation of New York. Trent's first career was in public education. He spent several years as a social studies teacher before becoming a high school administrator, which I had no idea. That's going to be fun to dive into. Trent received a bachelor's degree in social science with an emphasis in economics from Brigham Young University. He earned a master's degree in education and leadership from the University of California, Berkeley. Trent earned a master's degree in policy management and a doctorate in performance management from Harvard University. Trent's biggest passion is being dad. He and his wife, Rosie, have 7 children and enjoy a full family life. Trent's public service includes church and community service and board positions with Success in Education Foundation, Silicon Slopes, and Young Presidents Organization, YPO. So with that, you can see Trent is no dummy, well-spoken, well-educated, and I'm excited to hear your thoughts today, Trent. So thank you so much for being here.
You bet, Erin. It's fun to be here. I'm glad you read that bio. The only person I really want to hear it, though, is my wife. So if we can make sure she hears the first part of the podcast, that'd be great. Awesome.
Because that will give you a little credibility.
Right.
A little reminder.
Maybe my kids, too. That'd be great.
That they won't care.
That's true.
They won't care. But, wow, I mean, besides the educational accolades, which are just amazing, father of 7. And you're so young. How did you and Rosie squeeze all that in?
Oh, I'm not that young.
In such a period of time. But now you live in Salt Lake.
Live in Holiday, just south of Salt Lake, yeah.
Good. Well, tell me a little bit more, and tell the folks that are listening to you a little bit more about Cicero. I think that it's a hidden gem in Utah that certainly people in the educational field and many for-profits are aware of your work. But I'd love if you could give us a little commercial on Cicero as well.
You bet. Cicero is the biggest and, in my opinion, the best player in an industry that is not as well known in Utah as it is, especially on the coasts and in the big cities, called management consulting. And management consulting is an industry that dates back to the 60s and 70s, the 1960s and 70s. And it's basically the helping senior management at medium and large size companies develop more rigor in their decision making, using more data, more analytics to help have a crystal ball on the future and make decisions to help the company or the organization grow. And so that's an industry, like I said, it's very well known in academia. It's well known on the coast and in the big cities. And prior to Cicero coming to Utah in 2005, No other real big players in Utah. And so now, like I said, we're the biggest and, in my opinion, the best management consulting firm in Utah. We do serve clients here, but we have clientele all over the world as well.
Wow, that's a lot. And I've been to your offices, which are amazing. They're very cool. Tell me a little bit about, so in addition to all of that, family, this company that you've grown and created, which is very demanding, and you serve in the community in a variety of capacities, one being the Success and Education Foundation, which is the board that oversees our initiative of Women Who Succeed. And in our last board meeting, I was so pleasantly surprised and thrilled, and that you stood up and spoke up and said, I think what Erin's describing in her presentation, this is really important, and I'm going to pledge to get behind it with Cicero and our women in leadership in our group. And no one else had done that yet. Like, you didn't need to do that, but you really made a public kind of statement to me of your investment and your value of what you saw, what we were trying to do. And I'm curious what you found interesting or why that compelled you to make that statement.
Yeah, great question. I'll try to be reflective on the moment. You're helping me remember the moment, but I was fairly passionate about what you were saying, and you definitely got me going. For one, I believe in you. I mean, so for starters, since you've joined the foundation, I've seen some great things, and I'm really excited about your leadership and what you're bringing to the table. So, for starters, it was coming from the right source. Let's start there. But I think what really pricked my heart, as my daughter, I have 7 kids. The first 2 are boys, and they're both out of the house and doing great. I'm so proud of the decisions they're making. And then the next kid is a junior in high school, my daughter Kate, and she's been an amazing child.
She's a slacker. Come on now, let's just
she's
admit
she's an amazing human being,
she
and
is.
I definitely notice that whether it's based on the culture she surrounds herself with, the school she goes to, our family, which is built fairly traditionally, the church we go to, whatever it is, or maybe a combination of those things. Her self view of what she can achieve and where she's going to go is actually different than the boys. Might be birth order, right? It could be a variety of things, but
The scientist in you, the social scientist in
right.
you
I mean,
comes
the
out.
variables are many. I can't
I think you should
isolate.
take this on as a
Right. I
project.
can't isolate the variables, but when what you were sharing is how can we help teenage girls in the state? How can we help them create a vision for themselves that includes senior level leadership in the community and in business and in other organizations? And what you were arguing for was a mentorship program for girls. And really hard for me not to raise my hand and get excited and pledge resources behind it. So it's just a win-win-win all the way around. The girls win because they're getting mentored from fantastic leaders in the community. The mentors win because they're getting to have impact, make a difference. And then in that case, I got to win because as an employer, I got to do something meaningful for my senior leaders who are women to enable them to go have impact in the community. It would have been hard to keep my hand down, I guess, is the point.
Not a lot of downsides.
Got pretty excited about it, yeah.
Well, of course, I'm so grateful for you doing that. There's so much to unpack in what you just described. I mean, like, number one, let's just start with your daughter, who just every time I have been with her just owns it, and not in a cocky, arrogant way. She exudes a comfort and a polish and, gosh, a self assuredness in a humble way, for sure, that I don't think some women can go their whole lifetime and not have. She seems like a female executive that's been well educated, well trained, and enters a room and just owns it. I just have to tell you that. Last Wednesday
Great.
I saw her, and she was greeting people. She was putting her hand out. She was looking them in the eye. She was just very deliberate and purposeful. And I'm sure she got a lot of that from you and Rosie, from her, because your family is tight, and so a lot of those
Yeah.
life lessons have to be from
Yeah.
y'all.
I would hope we've had an impact there. She's very self-aware, and um, I will say I've called her my little CEO since she was about 5 years old.
Oh,
So
she is.
there's definitely some some massaging of helping her see herself the way that the in the types of things she can achieve. So we've definitely tried, but nonetheless, that self-awareness that she has, I also think that as a woman in Utah, as a woman, in our community, she may have that ease and that presence. She doesn't necessarily, doesn't naturally set sights for
Mm.
herself as high as some of the boys. And so that's in that moment you're talking about in the meeting where I almost jumped out of my seat and got so excited. Those were some of the things going through my mind. She is so capable, and I'd very much like her running a company I worked for someday, or an organization I worked for someday. And I'm very comfortable with her choosing not to pursue that route. I just would want her to pursue whatever route she wants to pursue, and not one that people around her or society around her dictates for her.
Yeah, oh, I love that. So to that point, I think that one of the moving factors of wanting to do Women Who Succeed, my 22 and 18-year-old sons, I noticed that wow, things are pretty easy for them. Like a lot of doors just seem to get opened. A lot of people in our neighborhood saying, "Oh, would Jackson like to do an internship? Would Harrison like to come visit my company?" And I thought, does that happen as often for young women so that they can make a choice of that's an additional path they could take. That's one of 10,000 paths they could take. But do you see that, or maybe it could be just that I'm biased. Do you see doors open in that regard with your daughters? Do you have more than Kate? That's a daughter.
I do.
Yeah.
I
So I mean,
do.
like, do
Yeah.
you do you do you think that that is a feasible statement?
Yeah. And Nora, my other one, is my little chairman. So we've
You
got
got some
some
powerful women there.
heavy hitters in our
Yeah.
in our house. Um, I don't know that I've observed it exactly how you're saying, but I mean I think we all view the world through lenses, right? I
Yeah.
mean that's the thing. We all view the world through the lens of what we've experienced. So if you live in a neighborhood that's fairly traditional, fairly traditional family values, fairly traditional family structures, and kind of old school mentality on the role of a woman, then I think it makes perfect
Good
sense
point.
that without negative intentions, those individuals are gonna look at your boys differently than if you had a daughter. They're gonna think differently about their future and what they want.
Just the context that it's coming
Yeah,
from. Yeah, that
for
makes
sure.
sense.
And
That
I,
makes
I
sense.
think that's one thing I've learned as an employer for women and really any of my employees, letting them be themselves at work matters enormously, and not putting assumptions on them in terms of what they want or how they're going to deal with their family or their
Hmm.
career, and just understanding, I've got women and men who don't want to climb the ladder as fast as others,
Yeah.
and just making sure I understand what they want and what they're shooting for, I think is really critical. And in this case of the neighborhood, I could see the neighbors making assumptions about what your boys want and what the girls in the neighborhood want, and those assumptions would be based on their own set of experiences and the lenses that they carry around every day.
I feel like I'm in one of my classes at the University of Utah. I love it.
Philosophy.
Getting my graduate. Yeah, I love it. Um, Talk to me a little bit about, and I hope this title label does not make you feel uncomfortable, but you really come across as a strong advocate for women, and the way you're speaking describes to me a sense of equality, um, fairness, and the term that's used often now is a male ally. And I'm curious, as you look at the females that are senior leaders in your organization, um, how do you think that, is there anything that you do specifically as a male ally that helps to grow and to push them to the next level from a professional perspective?
I don't know. It feels like a better question for them. But I'll tell you a couple things that are in my heart on the topic,
Yeah.
and I would assume they come out in our actions and in the culture of our company. So these are a couple things that really come from the heart. First of all, when I get asked, the big question that a lot of times you get asked in these podcasts, something like, "What makes you tick?" or "What are you all about?" or "What gets you up in the
Oh,
morning?"
I don't have those. I should write those down.
Yeah, yeah. I'm grateful you don't have those, but now here I am answering it anyway. They're hard questions, and for the last 10 years or so, I've very confidently been able to answer them because I guess it took me until I was, in my mid 30s to really be able to understand what makes me tick, and it's really simple. It's the human potential. So, it's no surprise I became a teacher. It's no surprise that even now that I'm in business, I run a business that basically sells people's hours, right? It's consulting, it's people. And in my very heart, what I get most excited about is the kind of transformation I've seen in my life because of education and because of mentors and because of good feedback I've received. I get excited about the best years of my life being ahead of me. I get excited about the growth and development I'm going to have in the future. And when I meet my kids for the first time, when I meet my employees for the first time, that's what's going through my mind is the absolute infinite potential in front of them. So that's for starters. That's at the core of who I am and what I get excited about and why I make the decisions I make is the infinite potential of humans, my own and others. So then second, I think a feedback-rich culture. I think feedback is the greatest form of professional love and respect. And for most people, it's really hard to get constructive feedback. It's really hard to receive it. But we're in end of year review season at Cicero right now, so it's very top of mind for me. And I've told my senior leadership team several times already this year that the best way to disable a Ciceronian from succeeding is to hold back on critical feedback. What they want, what they deserve, is to know how they can grow and improve. Now, of course, we try to go 3x the positive feedback to the constructive feedback. We're not walking around criticizing everybody, but giving really true, honest feedback to individuals about where they can improve. And it's addictive. It's very, very addictive to have that kind of feedback. So that's a second thing. I think a feedback-rich culture where we can, really help people grow, help ourselves grow over time, I think is a really big deal. I would assume that, women care just as much about that as anyone else, and so that may help women succeed.
I think the culture element, I'm sorry to
Yeah.
interrupt you, but I think that the cultural element of building it is like, and when I try to build cultures, I really focus on that it's okay to say we blew it, or there was a mistake, or I made a mistake, and here's how we're going to pivot, and here's how we're going to change, and this is what we're going to do, and we embrace that. Let's not make the same mistakes again, but let's be fine, actually thrilled that we tried something, and let's just celebrate that. And so when you're talking about the feedback culture and creating it so it's a common, it's expected, it's part of the ritual dance, it's part of what you do and who you are. I think that's amazing, and I actually think that the candor. It'd be interesting. I'd love some time to come be a fly on the wall in your shop, because when I was in a previous role and had 600 staff and the majority, 91% were female, feedback was interesting. It was tricky. Like, I was much too direct. And I think there was some gender, some maybe learned behavior, I don't know, nature versus nurture. But the women in the organization, I had struggled finding the right approach to give the feedback, that I came across too blunt or direct, and they felt like it was a direct criticism. And I'm speaking in generalities. That certainly
Sure.
that's not for all women, just in some of my experiences. Have you found that at all in your organization?
I've found lots of people who don't like feedback.
Lots of people.
Of both genders and all
Yeah,
different generations.
for sure.
And they don't fit real well in consulting. Our people are our
Right,
product.
they have to be open
Right,
to
our
it.
people are our product. And so in a product company, you put your product on the proverbial table and you analyze it and you make your product better. In consulting, you put the person on the table and you poke holes and figure out how to,
Yeah.
how to improve that person so they can bill at higher rates and be more profitable and be more attractive
Good point.
to future clients. So it's a tough environment if you don't like feedback. But I think the two keys to feedback and whether it's to women or men, number one, it's got to be frequent.
Hmm.
If it's once a year or if it's twice a year, it becomes really awkward. And if it's just regular part of the conversation, I left a meeting. I loved it. I left a meeting with one of our principals, Jimmy Lindsley, a month or so ago at an awesome company down in Utah County. And we're literally walking out of the building. As soon as we're outside of the client's ears, he goes, "Hey, Trent, we haven't really done one of these meetings together before. Do you have feedback for me?" And I said, "Jimmy, wow, you were awesome. You were so prepared. Holy cow, thank you so much." And he goes, "No, no, no, no. I want to get better. Tell me what I can do to get better." I mean, he
Right.
he pushed it, and so
Genuinely wanted it.
that kind of culture where it's frequent just makes it less awkward, and it's awesome. It's addictive, like I said, it really is, because you see that personal improvement. I say people who succeed at Cicero, they're growth junkies. I want to be better today than I was yesterday. I want to be better next year than I was this year, and that that feeds itself. The second is specificity. Look, everyone's written about the importance of specificity, but the generalities, hey, you did good in that meeting, it really doesn't help. But getting really specific. We probably at end of year review time, we try to do it all year long, but at end of year review time, we probably spend, I don't think I'm exaggerating, 10 hours per person as we consider the end of year review, and that's a lot, especially from senior people.
That is a big investment.
Yeah.
It's an investment in them. It's definitely an investment in human beings and helping them to grow. I want to know if you have if there are any women, current or past, that have been a role model or that you've admired.
Oh my gosh,
So
yeah,
many, I know, but
yeah. There's a
try to
lot.
pick one.
There's one that comes to mind right away. My first boss in my first big kid job, right out of college. I was a social studies teacher in Northern California, and I had this principal named Mary Eversley, and she was fantastic. And I think that may be where I got so interested in this feedback culture. It was just second nature to her. She'd come in your classroom, she'd watch, she'd write you a little note, so you got immediate feedback, and then you'd meet with her, the next day, and you would talk through the lesson. And she took copious notes, and so we could analyze every move I made. From I remember feedback about specific language I was using and how inclusive that was for everyone in the room. I remember feedback about my physical movements. She had mentioned that maybe it was because of my nerves, but I was pacing quite a bit in front of the class, and how that can be a little distracting for kids if they have to kind of track me. Physically, they
Yeah.
really need to be tracking me with their ears. I mean, I could name 10 more things, and in one of those debriefs, we went through all these areas I could improve, and she said, "Trent, I just want you to know something. In this industry, you can do anything you want to do. You're good. You're good. You can do
Mm.
anything you want to do. So start dreaming big." And I mean, can you imagine that? Your first couple years in a career, getting that precise of feedback from someone that you really respect, and then her
Right.
looking you in the eye and saying, "You're the real deal. You can go. You can be anything you want to be." So she comes to mind right away when you talk about female mentors and female role models.
I love that. I wish I would have met her. I love the specificity. It's like giving a child, instead of saying good job, being very specific. I really actually appreciate that you took the initiative to empty the dishwasher for me.
Yeah, that's
It
right.
goes a lot
Yeah,
further, and the
that's
same
right.
with adults as well.
And then here's how it made me feel, and here's what it helped me
Right.
accomplish. They to see the actual, not just the specificity, but then the so what, or the impact, or the why behind the improvement, I think is helpful as well.
Well, in wrapping up today, what I'd love to ask you is if you had any words of wisdom or guidance for the young men in our community. Women growing in leadership provides unique perspectives to companies, just like race, ethnicity, ages, having that diverse perspective to make business decisions, to have other thoughts. Um, but it cannot, this is not about a women's movement. This is about human beings recognizing capabilities, um, growing and improving. so that we can do better in our personal lives and in our business lives. So it takes both men and women, I think, to elevate more women into a stronger level of confidence and a stronger level of leadership. And I'm curious if you could give some advice to the young men that may be entering your company. What would you say to them if you're like, here's some advice I have to you about mentoring young women or growing leadership with females in our company? What would you say?
Fantastic question. I think I guess at the premise of that is there an obstacle to men today? Mentoring women and bringing women into their leadership teams. I gotta wonder. Maybe I'll start with the advice. The advice is lean in, like go find the best talent you can surround yourself with. Get diverse perspectives on your team as quickly as possible, and that's a high return investment. The problem is I fear that men or some men worry that it's also a high risk proposition, and they might be right. I personally have not been, I have not seen the high risk part of it, but I can put myself in other men's shoes, and I would wonder, do men ask themselves the question, how do I appropriately interact with a woman? Should I and can I, spend one-on-one time with them in a lunch or dinner
That's
situation?
what Scott Anderson brought up.
Can I pat them on the back?
Yeah.
Can I give them a hug after a win?
Yeah.
Or do they get the high five and the dudes get the hug?
Yeah.
I think there's some there could be some concern there, and so I'd say lean in. I can promise you it's a high return investment, and maybe just have open dialogue with the women in your life and figure out how to not make it high risk. And I think there's a bright future there for sure.
I agree. Well, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts today. My biggest takeaways, I really loved. I need to go back and think about some of my cultural nuances with feedback and specificity. I'd like to get feedback from the women in our organization. We have a predominantly female staff right now about how they're feeling about the candor and my delivery of feedback. I think that would be good for me to understand better too. So thanks for the little, you gave me a little tutorial today for a little coaching.
You bet.
A little leadership coaching here.
My takeaway is I want to also ask the women within the organization how they're feeling, and do they view me as a male ally, and if not, what do I need to do? How do I get there? Because that's definitely the hope. So thanks so much for your time.
I challenge you that. I'm going to circle back with you in a couple of months and see if you were able to do that. Is that fair?
I'm in.
Okay, we'll check on each other. Well, that is all we have today for the We Hear Her podcast. Thank you so much again to Trent Kauffman, owner and CEO of Cicero, and we will see you next time on our podcast. Thanks a lot.
Thank you for taking time to hear her. Join our efforts and learn more at womenwhosucceed.org. A big thank you to our sponsor, the Clark and Christine Ivory Foundation.